Everyone. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, this is Boots Garcia, a member of the MOP Arts and Cultural Committee, and I'm going to moderate and MC today's event. As you're aware, this is the second of our lecture series on topics which we think or we believe will be of interest to our members. So today we will not only have a virtual feast on food. In fact, when we were preparing for this talk, Jin and I were actually saying it would have been, more exciting if we actually had food to eat. But unfortunately, we do not have that opportunity today. So instead of a feasting on real food, we're going to have a feast of history and culture about Pampango cuisine, and as well as about Pampanga, which is also considered as one of the culinary capitals of the Philippines. So before I start the program, I'd like to give you some reminders for the participants. Please note that you're automatically muted and your camera or video is also disabled. If you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A box that you are seeing on the screen. And together with the Secretariat, we will read and choose some of the questions depending on the time that we have. And for your information, you will only be able to see the speaker, but you will not be able to view the other participants. And lastly, if you lose your connection, just come back by pressing the link which you have received earlier in logging in. So on behalf of the MOP Arts and Cultural Committee, I have the privilege to open the lecture today. And to begin, I'd like to invite our chair of the MOP and Arts and Culture Committee, Eddie Yap, who is somewhere in the world at an evening time, in fact, or morning time. So is it morning, Ed? Yeah, it is morning.
Yes, it's
early morning.
It's 2:30 in the morning where I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Eddie, can you please take the floor?
Yes, good evening, fellow MAP members and guests. Thank you, Boots. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I hope this finds all of you and family members well and safe. This pandemic lockdown has caused so much disruption to our lives, aside from so much distress, and to some, the loss of family members and friends, including recently a person I admire, MAP past President Ramon Mon Yap Di Macali. May their soul rest in peace. It is for this reason we in the MAP Arts and Culture Committee has been offering a different diet, a diversion, so to speak, from the relentless onslaught of dreary news and deluge of webinars on serious subjects. Late last year, we offered a series consisting of 3 concerts. These were reprises of past productions I did for MAP. The first was a Flavor of Vienna concert, followed by 2 Adeste Fideles Christmas concerts at the Santuario San Antonio and PICC. These are available in YouTube. This year, we have started a lecture series on arts and culture topics. The first one was a virtual tour of the Metropolitan Museum and Contemporary Art featuring 2 renowned artists. Tonight's topic is on Pampango High Cuisine by Chef par excellence, GONZALEZ. This is not a cooking demo, as Boots mentioned, which you can easily find in YouTube. Rather, Jin will talk on the origins and history of Pampango cuisine and why, from the river town Sulipan in Pampanga, it has evolved into one of the foremost cuisines of our country. He will likewise feature some of the outstanding dishes of the cuisine. You will enjoy his lecture while finding it educational. We conducted a survey among the members to guide us in formulating our monthly lecture series. For those who have not sent in your response, please do so. Next month's lecture will be on original Filipino music, or what is popularly known as OPM. Following this will be a presentation of the Japanese kaiseki or kaiseki ryori, a traditional multi-course degustation dinner consisting of a set of small dishes exquisitely and meticulously prepared and presented. Now back to Jean Gonzalez. By way of introduction, I must mention that Jean is a Pampango, belongs to a cuisine-rich family, chef patron of Cafe Ysabel, president of the Center for Asian Culinary Studies, chef instructor. At the age of only 23, he opened Cafe Ysabel in Green Hills with the help of his landlady, veteran actress Susan Roses. It is now in a new location in San Juan. After overcoming a serious health challenge, the culinary world gladly welcomed back Jean with much gusto. And finally, I take special pleasure in disclosing that Chef Jean is my longtime colleague in the Philippine branch of the International Wine and Food Society, or IWFS of London. Before I hand the stage over to Chef Jean, allow me to thank my fellow members of the committee for their help and support, and to tonight's MC, Aurora Boots Garcia, and the secretariat headed by Executive Director Arnold Salvador. Chef Jean, you now have the floor. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Um, Thank you very much, Boots and Ed. I hope I will be able to deliver a um, informative lecture for today on Kapampangan Cuisine. I prepared a series of slides which we will do on later. Let me do a rather lengthy introduction on Kapampangan Cuisine and the cuisine of my hometown called Sulipan. Um, let's put some groundwork here. Many people say that Pampanga is the center of cuisine of the country. It's the citadel of cuisine. Let me clarify this. Just like everyone is into the everyone looks at the technical aspects of trade, the science of commerce, Pampanga is one of the citadels of cuisine in our country. Remember that we are more than 7,000 islands. Each and every area would have a different interpretation of any Filipino dish. I am pure Kapampangan. My mother and father hails from Pampanga, and I can tell you that I will only claim that it is one of the citadels because of very good commerce and trade and marketing. You know that I will be repeating this all the time, that one of the variables of a good cuisine is always the particular trade that happens in the place and the economy of the area. And I can say that maybe we just go to the action that Pampanga was first. So sometimes in marketing, the marketing action that it is first, it is better to be first than to be better, will apply. So I don't want to make any grandiose claims, though many of the traditionalists would always say that it is Kapampangan cuisine that is the center. I would like our friends and our fellow Filipinos to investigate and to see and try the food of other areas themselves, to be able to understand that there is a rich food culture that is present. We have been divided by our islands because we're an archipelago, and it is only now, because of social media and because of technology, that we know what our neighbors are eating, what our neighboring islands are eating right at this very moment. And this is a good thing because we are starting to rediscover and we're starting to get our acts together in cuisine. Now, as I said, we'll reserve the slides later, but let me give you a rather lengthy introduction on Kapampangan cuisine and on Pampanga. Well, the name Pampanga, taken from the Tagalog reflex, panpan. The Pampanga reflex means riverbank. It brings to mind the importance of a pre-Hispanic river culture that existed 1,500 years BC. No? So unearthed period potteries would show accounts that Pampangos were very keen traders, and they would go around the network of spice islands, the Moluccas, Patani, Brunei, Batavia, which is, Jakarta, and they would trade with their neighbors, and which is also why there is a lot of trade going on, and Kapampangan culture before lends itself to a lot of trade. Malay migrations, you have to also understand all the datus that all migrated to different islands. The Kapampangan language is very, very similar to Bahasa. There are roots in Bahasa. And if you take a look at famous Kapampangan personalities of the old era, there was Panday Pira, the cannon maker, who came from Apalit. And from neighboring Lubao was Raha Soliman, the man who was one of the first people that defied Spanish rule. So, what is very important in Kapampangan, one of the very centers of the proliferation and the development of cuisine in Kapampangan cooking is the Rio Grande de Pampanga, that huge river where its roots open to Manila Bay. People the Pasig River is easily accessible. Manila is easily accessible through the Pampanga River, and all you have to do is to go downstream, and you will reach the River Pasig. So a lot of rich clay deposits lends itself to the pottery, the agriculture. It became an irrigation area, which is why a lot of produce is made. There is a rice field culture. There is eventually it became a sugarcane culture. And if we look at Sulipan, which is the first town of Pampanga, it is called Sulipan. It is right after Kalumpit. It is very well known for its patron saint called Apong Iro, which is the patron saint of the town, which they bring out into the river and ceremoniously bring it out during the fiestas for a great harvest. They pray to Apong Iro, and this is what the whole culture of these people are when they are right beside the river. everything is furnished by the river. Everything is done. So let us take a look at a description of Sulipan. Before we go into our slides, because the slides are quite easy to explain. But before we go into slides, let me tell you that between the last quarter of the 19th century and the first 2 decades of the 20th century, on the banks of the Rio Grande de Pampanga, flourished a culture and a lifestyle that blended Hispanic, European, Chinese, and Malay, and rather belatedly for a short period, American elements. The media of communication was Kapampangan and Spanish, the architecture a blend of Malay and Hispanic, the music simple, combining lowland Filipino and rural Spanish, the lifestyle a blend of Malay and Spanish, the comforts European, the economy feudal, and agriculture, of course, built on a fortune of sugarcane and rice, and the cuisine a blend of local and continental. So this is a perfect example of Criollo, no? East and West, very similar to New Orleans. If we talk of a thriving economy, the steamers would park beside the banks of the Rio Grande de Pampanga, and the Europeans who would load up on sugar would bring down their goods to trade. And a lot of the trading, which was basically European goods, fell into the hands of the Kapampangan and Sulipan elite. We had Pilivut porcelain, Baccarat crystal. We had sterling silver implements, and this is all housed. For those who want to see the remnants of this is all housed in the Museo de la Sal in Cavite, where part of our family has donated a lot of these collectibles to be maintained by the foundation. Okay, the Manila and Central Luzon elites frequented the fiestas held regularly in Apalit, Pampanga, across the river from Kalumpit, Bulacan. They came by horse, carriage, but mostly by bangka and casco or riverboat. And eventually, on a later time, it was very easy. You just take the train from Tutuban and you're there. This was already in the early 1900s. And because the trip was long, guests were provided lodging. They stayed in the houses of the elite. And many of the heroes or many of the ilustrados who enjoyed the hospitality of this area called Sulipan were inspired by a show of European grandeur or culture. In fact, a part of the satirical novel of Noli Me Tangere and Jose Rizal, Noli Me Tangere, displays and gives description to the houses where he stayed. And if you take a look at all these descriptions and the balls, the tertulias, the parties that happened, this was Sulipan. Capitan Tiago and Doña Victorina de Espadaña were personifications of a man called Jose Arnedo. And Jose and Joaquin Arnedo, these are, and Maria, Capitana Maria, these were the basic hosts that entertained a lot of dignitaries, a lot of people, uh, VIPs who went and enjoyed uh, the hospitality of Sulipan. Um, Food has a special focus on Sulipan culture or on Kapampangan culture. Uh, the typical Kapampangan worries about what he or she is going to eat for the next meal and anticipates the pleasures of the gustatory taste and provides regularly for the satisfaction of these pleasures as an integral part of life. And the proper host in this scenario would be to take charge of the well-being of the host. So it was not only entertaining while people would dine during the time that they would be staying in Pampanga. They would, even after they would leave, they always had something to bring. It was always a polite thing to send them something to bring. The the food, if we were to divide the food into two uh, if we were to divide the food into two uh, groups,
Mm.
there will be the pamangan kengkilwal or the outside cooking. This is the cooking done by the staff. This is made by those who are tending to the guests, and the food is quite how would you call it? It's quite rich, but in terms of a rice culture, the the produce comes from the rice fields or the cane fields, and everything from the rice to the fish, like the dalag, the ayungin, and all that. These are all part of uh, the food for the health, which was creatively done, wonderfully done. A lot of it arose from the rice field culture. So the rice field culture had even insects. They even had amphibians like frogs. And then you have the food pamangan. They call it pamangan kembabo, or the food upstairs, which is the food for the guests or the elite. My grandmother followed this uh, this um, division of food, and I was privy to the pamangan kenkilwal, the outside food, and the food upstairs, and both were wonderfully delicious. Even the provincial or barrio food. In my book Cocina Sulipena, the revised edition, I decided to uh, put a new chapter on barrio cuisine because I felt that uh, Kapampangan cuisine would not be complete, especially Sulipan cuisine, without that rich cuisine of the barrio. So the whole everything revolved around the river. Even fish that um, was not caught in the rice fields. You had other types of fish like mullet and apahap, which is your baramundi. These are all taken from the huge river that opened up anyway to uh, the bigger bodies of water, which is the sea. Although there is no coastal area in Pampanga, it's all river. Um, their eggs were taken from the ducks and also from the chickens that were grown. So we're talking of a thriving economy with uh, a developing and thriving cuisine. The foreigners who dock and load up on sugar and who sold um, European wares like pottery, silver, crystal, they also thought that they also had social intercourse with the natives, and taught the natives food of their lands. So in Sulipan, we have, curiously, certain French terms like pistou, which is a vegetable dish in France. It's a vegetable and ham omelette that we have, which is served in weddings, and we call it pistou. We have taburete, which is taburet, which is a type of chair. We have glacé. There are a lot of um, terms that are quite French, and some Basque and Spanish terms that are that have been imbibed by this culture. So, what is can we take a look at the slides now?
Yeah.
We'll take a look at the first slides. Okay. Then we have the next. So, as I said, the culture revolves around the Rio Grande de Pampanga, and a lot of not only fish. It was rich with clams. It had its own prawns, river prawns that were huge. It had huge fish. Every fiesta, we would have what? 5 kilo, 6 kilo, huge barramundis that were served with homemade mayonnaise. And these were all caught in the Rio Grande de Pampanga. Unfortunately, because of pollution and because of the change in the economy, we are starting to lose this, and a lot of these indigenous fish are starting to disappear. Next slide, please. Okay, so Kapampangan Cuisine. We talk of the indigenous. We talk of a cuisine that revolves around the start, a rice field culture, and later on a sugar culture. We talk of buro. Buro, which is fermented rice. We don't have any dairy, which will give probiotics to our systems, digestive systems. So we have buro, and buro is also an excellent preservation of
Fish.
what is caught from the river, whether it be shrimp,
Yeah.
different kinds of fish, but mostly it is a preservation method of putting rice, fermenting the rice with this fish with salt. Buro is not exclusive to Pampanga. Buro is very common among South Asian countries, South Asian tribal countries. We talk of tribal, we talk of the tribes, the mountain tribes of Taiwan. We talk of Chinchalok in Malaysia. We talk of several forms of buro. We even talk of the ancient forerunner of sushi, which is the Edo style of fermented rice with fish. So this is buro. And buro is now well enjoyed. It just had to be explained very well to a lot of foreigners. A lot of foreigners used to jest and say, "Hey, are you from Pampanga? Do you eat rotten fish?" Yeah, I said one of my answers was yes, we do. We eat rotten fish. We also eat rotten milk like brie, camembert, and all that. But yeah, buro is wonderful because it not only gives you probiotic benefits, it's very high in amino acids. So in terms of taste, like fish sauce and bagoong, buro gives a lot of that umami flavor, which is softened by the use of very strong leaves like mustard and used as a wrap, used also as a condiment for fried and grilled or boiled, uh, fried and grilled fish or boiled seafood, boiled vegetables. Then we also have, we talk of rice field cooking. What can be caught from the rice fields? Um, you have the traditional hito, which is fast disappearing now because most of the hito we find in the market are already hybrids. They have been hybridized to get bigger yields, to have these huge hitos with these African varieties. So the meat is not, it's quite, they're quite large, but not as tasty as the yellowing variety. If you want hito, you really have to go to the rice fields, the nearby rice fields, like in Magalang or how would you call it? Certain areas that are marshy in Pampanga, or the rice field areas of Thailand, where you can still get this, they call it the walking catfish, yung hito, and it has yellowish flesh. Um, Aside from, you talk about rice field cookery, you talk about the variations of rice. We don't only have that rice is not only rice, but there is young rice, which is very expensive, green rice, which is pounded by hand, and the hulls are harvested, and it is what you call duman, and it's very expensive. It can go between 3,000 plus to 6,000 per kilo. It has natural sugars, and it's quite sweet when it's pounded very early, and it is eaten normally fresh, or some, if they have old duman, they puff it like pinipig and sprinkle it as a texturizer for hot chocolate. Um, Aside from the rice, from the benefits that you can get from the rice fields, the fish and the rice, you have a lot of forage vegetables that are wild, just like the ferns, the paho, the bigger ferns called uh, heaven staff. They're big. How would you call it? Big fiddleheads, and a lot of wild vegetables that grow way on the riverside, on the irrigation areas, which are fed by the river, the Rio Grande de Pampanga. So you have wild spinach. Uh, you will find this all around growing, but many people do not know that this is edible, but it is an edible wild vegetable. It's called uyap. Okay, and aside from that, of course, people, it's a good protein source, are the pests, which is the locusts. They would carry the um, they would come during seasons to eat the rice, which is with great difficulty was planted by the farmer, but these provide an adequate protein source. At the end of the harvest, you have kamaru, which is the mole cricket. The mole cricket burrows underneath the rice, the harvested rice, eats the roots, and you have what they call the kamaru. And the kamaru is quite hard right now to find anymore because unfortunately a lot of the rice fields have been turned into commercial areas and have been turned into subdivisions. But you can still get some kamaru at very expensive prices, or you can get some and try it on the streets of Thailand, the mole cricket. Then we have also the use of the making of freshwater freshwater shrimp, which they make into a baguk or bagoong. Uh, quite quite the same as the seawater krill that's used, but this time using freshwater sources. Also, quite indigenous is the use of different kinds of leaves for wrapping, from banana leaves to mango leaves to a lot of other palm types of leaves that are used to wrap. Um, then another influence would be the Malay. The Malay influence would come with the migration of the different datus and those that settled down in Pampanga. I think we can, yes, there you go. So what are the different kinds of uh, dishes that have been influenced by the Malay culture? One is kare-kare. The kare-kare of Sulipan or portions of Pampanga is quite different from the kare-kare that uh, you will sample, which is basically all made out of a peanut stew. A true kare-kare, according to our town, Sulipan, is an even balance of toasted rice and toasted peanuts. You must be able to, because kare-kare is not only eaten as ulam, or you have a bit of stewed oxtail or tripe with vegetables, but it is eaten as a gargantuan meal. It's eaten like bulalo. It's a big stew and you have rice on the side. This is how people eat kare-kare in our place. So you don't want too much peanut. You want an actual balance, a 50-50 balance of um, toasted rice and peanuts. And the toasted rice would also lend to the absorption of the different oils that come from the long simmered oxtail or other parts of the cow, depending on your social status. Okay, most of the offals might be on the uh, Pamangan Kilwal, or the the food for the help or food for the laborers. But definitely, if you have this, definitely it would be just as good as a true oxtail kare-kare. I would prefer a lot of offal in my kare-kare. Then derang, which is uh, basically leaf wrapping and grilling. This is what you call derang. Then there is kilo, which is kilawin, which is eating things basically raw. But in the Kapampangan sense, kilo is basically pickling. It is not eating it raw, as in the Visayan context where you dip your raw item in vinegar and you eat it. Um, I think because of the how would you call it? Because Kapampangan is a freshwater produce culture. It is not a sea or coastal culture. Then I would say that early Kapampangan man ate things pickled rather than ate things raw because of the presence of more parasites in freshwater fish or freshwater prawns or even seafood such as clams. Okay. Then there is bulanglang. Bulanglang is simple. It's a simple braising of seasonal vegetables with whatever is available, whatever protein is available, like some type of fish caught from the river, but you have seasonal vegetables and seasonal fruits, just like a bulanglang of guava, which is basically what Tagalogs would term as sinigang sa bayabas. This is called bulanglang, and this is one of the Malay dishes that is present in Kapampangan cooking. Then there is paksi or paksiw. Paksiw is basically a procedure. It is a preservative procedure. Again, partially braising and pickling in vinegar. So we take a look at other cultures, other influences that have formed the Kapampangan cuisine. Braising, which is the intro of products from the galleon trade. Basically, tomatoes and potatoes are not indigenous to the Philippines. They came from Peru, and they came from Mexico. They came from the how would you call it? The Manila Acapulco trade. Though we're talking about Kapampangan cooking, I would like to make mention that the Acapulco trade not only brought a lot of artisans who came from Pampanga who did metal craft and woodcraft and brought them to Mexico to fix the churches. The Filipinos, now it is starting to become evident that the Filipinos taught the Mexicans how to make tequila, how to distill. But that's another story, and I would like to refrain from that because it's going to be quite a long story. Then we have the different modes of eating, or the different types of eating, which is the meals called, it's called meals. Right beside meals is called primero almuerzo. Now, when someone, there's hardly, people don't put in a 9 to 5 day in an office. So, when you wake up, there's a lot of leisure time. And normally, what you do is, upon waking up, you go to church. But before you go to church, you have what you call a primero almuerzo. This is how people ate. They ate several times a day. And the primero almuerzo is actually, how would you call it? The primero almuerzo is a small snack, a meal, like maybe an ensaymada or hot chocolate or some toast and chocolate or coffee, and then you go to mass. Okay, you get wakened up by the caffeine, and then you come back to your house and you have the almusal. So you have your breakfast. Breakfast will be preserved meats or what, or they would be adobong rice bird. Okay, the adobong maya, little birds that are fried or braised to tenderness, and you have this with your rice. As I said, it's a rice field culture. And then you have a segundo. You have a mid-morning to lunch snack. This is your segundo, just before lunch. So you just before lunch, you would have already eaten 3 times. And then you have the colación or lunch.
The real lunch.
Yes, the real lunch. Then there is a merienda or merendal. So you have your merienda, and after the merienda, then you have your cena or yung hapunan. After, some people, yung merendal might extend to merienda cena, but you have the cena. And after the cena, you have people, especially during parties, might even have one last snack. And when we talk of a snack, we're talking of a spread, a buffet. So this is how people ate in those times. And I think it would be really fun to be to be there eating. You know, for 2 days, 3 days, you're on vacation, and this is how you do it, how you eat. And so these are their typical meals. Okay,
Tamales. Yeah.
and then let's go to uh yeah, let's go to the uh dishes, no? Like you have the locust, you have the burong hipon. Burungbabi is uh hard to find now. It's quite hard to find, but yes, you will find it. I know Dennis Lim serves it. Uh, it is slices of pork belly put in between layers of rice, fermented, and then the rice is ginisa, made into buro. The pork is deep fried and served together with mustard leaves as a wrap, where you eat the crispy pork and you have the rice together. Then, as part of a rice field culture, we have tamales, the Mexican tamal, the Mexican tamal, which is made out of corned beef, corn and meats like beef and pork, is also wrapped, but wrapped in what is plentiful, corn husk. But south of Mexico, they wrap things in banana leaves, just like our tamales, which is very prevalent in Luzon. And tamales is a staple normally eaten as snack or breakfast. You have pieces of chicken, ham, maalat na itlog, or regular boiled egg, and these are um, these are steamed, ground mixed with ground peanuts or and ground peanuts and an oil, an anato oil or achete oil. This is what gives the orange color. Uh, Kapampangan cuisine is all orange, they say, because of the wide use of anato, which again is not indigenous to it's not indigenous it's not indigenous to our culture, because it was brought in also from the colonies, the anato. And what's nice to note about tamales is there are two divisions, two old style divisions for tamales. There is the tamales per se, which is a two-colored thing. You have toasted rice pudding, steamed and topped with toasted rice pudding with peanut, and then all the toppings are there. So it's two-colored. Then you have, and quite sweet, no? Then you have a how would you call it? A less sweeter and more savory type, whiter, made out of ground toasted rice called boboto. Very difficult to find this boboto now. You will only find this in very old Kapampangan homes, but many of the old people will ask you, are you serving tamales or are you serving boboto? Because there is a difference. Okay, let's move on to our next dish. Our next dishes, we have burong damulag. Okay. There's again, when we talk of rice field culture, a lot of the rice field cultures, because of the lack of refrigeration and all that, will have to depend on preservation, pickling, and fermentation. Burong damulag is carabao meat, but it's also translatable to beef and also translatable to pork. They have burungbabi. Okay, these are salted, sugared. We have to remember that Kapampangan culture, I'll delve on that, is also a sugary culture because it is a main producer of sugar. We supplied, the Pampangans became very rich because they supplied the world shortage of sugar, especially during the Crimean War. And these were all loaded on that little town called Sulipan, which I come from. Burong damulag is fermented meat. The meat acquires the basically wild yeast. It ferments on the sugars coming from the muscles of the meat and from the sugar that is put in the marinade of the meat. This fermentation does a tenderizing effect on the burong damulag and burungbabi or burung baka. You can still find this. You'll find this in Angeles City. They sell this, and you have a choice. You actually have a choice. You have a choice of a 3-day ferment, 1-week ferment, or very sour, where they say you don't need vinegar, but your typical Kapampangan will still dip it in vinegar to give it a flavor boost because the vinegar is also loaded with a lot of amino acids. Okay, fermentation gives you a huge flavor bomb, and this is what you can have when you buy this type of preserved meat. Tocino is basically the forerunner, and tocino, which means bacon in Spain.
Spanish, yeah.
Yeah, but tocino is actually the non-fermented forerunner of this burong na meats, no? Then below is again rice field culture. Bringhe shows off the Indian contacts and intermarriages between the Kapampangan Malay and your typical Pampangan, who has evolved. Bringhe is, if you take a look at the Indian language, is brinji, and brinji is biryani. And this rather glutinous rice, which some people call Valenciana also, but actually bringhe is cooked in turmeric and has been given the Kapampangan touch by topping it with adobo, while you have the Indian influences of turmeric. You have raisins and nuts topped on it, and you have a Chinese influence of having sliced Chinese sausage on top of this bringhe. Okay. Now I reserved these three sisigs for because I want to discuss this a little bit longer. Sisig in Kapampangan. Everybody. Okay. I have a question now. Is sisig Kapampangan, and does it always have to be pork? And are there variants? What is the original sisig? This is from Benedict Baladan. Okay, let's discuss this. We have 3 sisigs right now. Okay. First, let's talk about what people know about sisig. Sisig is pork, and sisig is made out of a pig's head. Why a pig's head? Because it has texture. It is not true. It is not true that sisig evolved from getting thrown away pigs' heads from the butchery of Clark Air Base, and it was creatively made into a dish called sisig. Not true. Not true. Sisig has been around way back during the turn of the century, and sisig is actually a method. There are different kinds of sisig. Sisig means chopped. There is sisig puso ng saging, which is chopped. And all of these chopped items, whether they be of pork, they be of clams, they be of puso ng saging, or whatever vegetable can be harnessed instead of a protein. Sisig is a chopped pickled dish made out of vinegar and spices. Why did this evolve, and what happened? What happened? Why? The traditional sisig is actually your tokwat baboy without the tokwa. Why? There are so many speculations, but all I have to say is, when I was small, people from the elite Kapampangan class all had dentures. They were all sugar soldiers. They all liked sugar. The Pampangans, they all love sugar because we come from a sugar producing area. And before, if you had to be classy, sugar was an expensive spice, even in Europe. So to be classy and to emulate conspicuous consumption, people like to put a lot of sugar in food. And people also had to have lots of dessert, which is very Kapampangan. You have to have a table laden with desserts. And people lost their teeth. People did not have the concepts of good oral hygiene. People lost their teeth. So how does a toothless person eat lechon? Well, in Kapampangan, they say isisig me, or make it into sisig, chop it up. And a lot of this is chopped up because of the toothless, or people who cannot chew, or the people who are infirm. Okay. That is pickled. That is cooked. That is put with vinegar, onions. So this is what you call sisig matua, or the old style sisig. Then, sisig puso ng saging is a sauteed. You can have sisig puso ng saging, sisig na clams or tulya. You can have sisig na kangkong or what. But these are all chopped up items meant to be eaten by the infirm, or meant to be eaten by those who had no teeth. Fast forward now to our present time. Sisig was so good that people were very experimental, especially in the area of Angeles, Pampanga, where sisig was grilled and chopped, and sisig had used also pig's head. It is not sisig did not originate from garbage. Maybe they had creative use of the discards of the Americans in Clark, and they made it into sisig, which, does not waste a good protein source. But definitely sisig did not originate that way. It was present even from way back. Also, we have to also look at how particular Kapampangans are when it comes to food. There is a city ordinance in Angeles where no matter what restaurant, whether you're Italian, you're Japanese, or what, you must serve a version of Angeleño sisig. Now, Angeleño sisig is a sizzling sisig that came from one of the older families of Angeles, the Pamintuans. They served a version of grilled pig's head, chopped up with lots of onions and lots of pepper, vinegar, and they served it sizzling for the enjoyment of people who like to have something really piping hot, or for drinkers who like something piping hot. And there are rules and ingredients to the sisig. And if you take a look at it, the Angeleño will shun putting all these modern style embellishments like mayonnaise. They put an egg, or this is not part of the traditional Angeles sisig. That has been, the ground rules have been laid out, and quite nice. I have had several versions of the Angeles sisig. One of them done by artist chef Claude Tayag, who I assisted in chopping up parts of the pig face that he had grilled after he boiled it to a certain tenderness. So this is sisig. Let's clarify and make that very clear. I've clarified that. Then, okay, desserts. Naturally, Pampanga is a sugar producing area. It was sugar trading happened, and who were the traders? The growers were the Filipinos. Then you had the Chinese middlemen, who were the traders of this sugar. And you have traditional desserts like dulce prenda. Okay, this is a sweet crusted pastry filled with sometimes with sweetened kundol and sweetened custard. And these things have to last for days, because it's not every day that people can just switch on an oven or what. So dulce prenda is something that might need to last for at least a week. Then there's ensaymada, which, of course, a good ensaymada with lots of egg yolks, lots of cheese, oily, buttery, will last you, 3 or 4 days without refrigeration, and will develop in flavor. Also, tocino del cielo. Tocino del cielo is not leche flan. It's a recipe I have shared in my book, Cocina Solipenia. It is a dessert made out of only caramel or caramelized sugar, egg yolks, and butter. That's all. You create a crystal custard, coagulated crystal custard from this. And this does not need refrigeration. 2 weeks, you're okay. You'll be okay. You don't need the refrigeration. We can move to the next slide, but we have a nice question from Filemon Hunterial, one person I consider my mentor in cuisine, gastronomy. In your admirable, tedious exploration of Philippine food, what is the identical version of Pampango dulce prenda in Tagalog and other regions? I cannot find. I think I'm very limited to this. Admittedly, I have not seen a version of dulce prenda. Maybe because I'm not really much of a lover of dulce prenda, but there are versions of these that come out with kundol in bakeries, in old traditional bakeries, and they are, how would you call it? Their crusts are sable crusted or sweet crusted or short crusted, made with lard. And yeah, I've not found really a version. Probably I found a similar one in San Pablo, but I really don't know what they call it. I found it once in one of the festivities of Villa Escudero. But the dulce prenda is a traditional pastry that we should all, that the chef should try to preserve and investigate and standardize, because we need to preserve uh, recipes like this. I don't know how many people, probably we might have to count with one hand how many people are making dulce prenda now. One of them is Aching Mila, Aching Lilian, sorry, Aching Lilian of of uh,
Oh,
Pampanga, and
talaga.
I
Coach
don't
pa.
know anyone else.
Okay.
So we move on to our next slide.
Jean, sorry to
Yes.
ask, how much more, how long, much longer will your talk be? I just don't wanna, I just wanna check.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just go over the slides. I'll be done. I'll be done in about 15 minutes.
Because
Are we going on overtime?
actually, this was supposed
Yes.
to end at 6:30, but of course, you know, the discussion has been quite interesting. So maybe there's a
Okay,
there's
let me go through that.
yeah, and then quickly perhaps so that we can also entertain some more
Okay.
questions.
Okay. Let's go to the Malolos Congress slide. Okay, those are the freshwater products coming from the Rio Grande de Pampanga. Then we have the Malolos Congress menu. Okay, this is this is the Malolos Congress menu that was formulated into, if you fold this becomes a Philippine flag. I was for 20 years recreating a Malolos Congress menu, which eventually was only one of the meals that we had. If you take a look at the Malolos Congress menu, it's in French. We had to show that we had to show the world that during our first lawmaking constitutional convention or congress, that we were a cultured people. We were not just Indios. So everything was cultured. It was French. We had sauternes. We had fantastic wines to go with this. And now we have discovered two menus. One last menu was discovered by Ambet Ocampo. It was discovered in Mindanao, and I have recreated it. And hopefully I will be able to use this as a menu for the 40th anniversary of Cafe Ysabel. Also, then we also have the Catholic influences on the diet, no? The Catholic friars influences. Okay, next slide. Okay, a lot of the influences has to go with the what the Catholic Church is. Let me mention just one. Many of the colonies have a lot of custard, have a lot of egg yolk based desserts. Why? Because if you mix and create a mortar out of egg white and plaster of Paris, you put it together with bricks, it'll last you forever. These are what our churches are made of. So next slide, please. And to show you the grandeur of Sulipan cuisine, sige, let's go. Next. So this is a little of, you have the tertulias, the balls. Okay, next. Then people would gamble. Yeah, they had these balls. So people played monte and panginge. People also played tennis. Yeah, wonder how you played tennis with long pants. Then people would hunt. Arthur MacArthur, the father of General MacArthur, Leonard Wood, they would go into the fields, but they would stay in Sulipan. They would go into the marshes and hunt for snipes, which and wild ducks, which would come in from and escape the cold weather of China and Siberia. People would swim. Okay, and then food and dinner wares. I have to make special mention of dinner wares and food because the dinner wares were European, and one particular curious portion of history was the gifting to Joaquin Arnedo of a set for 300 people, a banquet set given by the Grand Duke Alexis of Russia. This is the cousin of the Tsar who liked to go around the world, and he was a globetrotter. He liked to go around the world. He would do hunting. He would socialize, and he was so well entertained in Sulipan that he sent this. And you have the different VIPs that were. These are samples of how the spreads would look like. This is a dessert spread. Then the dignitaries. There was Arthur MacArthur, Governor Leonard Wood, the father of King Sihanouk, Prince Norodom, or the father of the present King Sihanouk, who was actually courting a Bulaqueña, who he gave this huge diamond, which the parents rejected and was donated as part of the as a jewel of a Bulacan church, no, for the Virgin Mary, because he was not Catholic. What's curious is you have a lot of Spanish family names in Cambodia because the king, who was prince then, brought a whole brass band of Filipinos who never came back. He brought a whole brass band because he was so well entertained by that brass band. There was also Joaquin Lopez Gonzalez, Grand Duke Alexis of Russia. Joaquin Lopez Gonzalez was one of the people who was part of the resistance against the Spaniards. He was also the first president of the forerunner of UP. Okay, and then he had the son who became a president of UP, Benvenido. Then we have Douglas MacArthur, and there was Jose Shoko, and all the ilustrados who were asking for support from Don Jose Shoko and Don Joaquin Arnedo. They were asking for funds to fund their reform movement. So we talk of the Malolos Congress, and we talk of bringing the Sulipan chefs to Malolos to be able to execute this dinner. Then who are the food critics who have been to Pampanga? There's Bourdain, who likes sisig and lechon, Mark Wins. There's our other food critics. And the winner for baking of the first World's Fair was Juan Padilla, a baker, who won with the pastry called Pasta Juan. And I guess this is the end of our lecture and description. Those who want to learn more about the grandeur of Sulipan and Kapampangan cuisine can get a copy from bookmark of my my first book called Cocina Sulipeña. The new edition has Barrio Cuisine. You may also subscribe to my food channel called The Kitchen Scoundrel, or just type in my name in YouTube and you've got access to a lot of very good tested recipes. I want to thank everyone, and I guess it's question and answer. It's Q&A time.
Thank you, Jean. It made us all hungry and wanting to have food. But it's interesting how you've described the evolution of Pampango cuisine, how the waterways and the natural resources have actually influenced, and how well, you didn't talk about the American influence, but of course the Spanish and the Malay influence. There was a question in the chat box: were there Indian settlers in Pampanga?
Indian?
I don't know whether he was referring to American Indian or Indian Indian.
Indian, in terms of people who came from India, they were people who traded. There was trading going on, which is why you have bringhe or brinji.
Brinji, yeah, that's right.
Yes, and you'll see spots of how the Indians they were trading, I would say. And of course, in Manila they had the sepoys, they had the Singhs, diba? The regiment that was left by the British.
As I asked you last time when we were speaking for this, preparing for this, there's a question: does Sulipan still exist?
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, it is now filled with it is now a haven for second-hand car parts and also stolen vehicles. There used to be there was a time when migrants, it was one of the first barrios that had a lot of migrants that came from Saudi, and many of them have already migrated. Many of them have already left the town. Unfortunately, the town is crumbling. The old houses are crumbling. We have houses there that have gone to the wrong side of the families. It's a little on the pathetic side, though there are certain measures that we've done to try to preserve things. But Sulipan, and which is why it drove me to write this book, because I had to preserve certain things.
Okay. As a follow-up to your statement about preservation, I think one of the challenges of what I might call heritage cuisine is to sustain and to preserve it. So what are the culinary professionals doing about it? And what aside from your writing a book, do you have any personal projects related to this?
Well, I always expound on Sulipan cuisine, and because of our school, we would teach these dishes to our students, because we feel that it's part of heritage cuisine, and I sometimes would intermix it with a lot of gourmet or wine dinners when it comes to the Sulipan style. It has become very interesting. For example, we've served the sinigang that goes very well with some sparkling wine. And the sinigang is the Sulipan sinigang, which is sauteed in olive oil. It's really kind of very Creole in style, and it hardly has any vegetables. It's all prawn and fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think the Philippine cuisine has a chance to be successful globally and accepted globally? And is there such a thing as a national cuisine, which is representative of the country?
We're moving towards a national cuisine. I would say we're moving towards a national cuisine because right now we have the machinery, we have the technology, we have, I can send you a recipe in 1 minute where and at any part of the globe. Give me a minute, I'll send you a recipe. The exchange is so good now that even the Filipino Americans and Filipinos from other countries have been already promoting our cuisine. It's just that it's hard to get the act together because we're 7,000 plus islands, and we want to we should be able to take the idea of regionalism out. We can maintain regional borders, but we should take the idea of regionalism, which is I'm the Kapampangans are very popular with that. They like to critique other kinds of cuisines, which I feel is detrimental to the development of our cuisines. So we're moving towards that, and we're moving towards recognition. And I would say we can divide between traditional folk cuisine and elitist cuisine. That there are such divisions also.
So there is a possibility or an opportunity for us to become more known globally. So my final question is this: what is your view of the current food scene? And do you have, on a personal note, what is your favorite restaurant or series of restaurants?
The current food scene is taking COVID or the pandemic out of it, or maybe putting it in. Okay, the current food scene, I would say, is very well developed because you can get anything you want. The chefs right now, the young chefs in the country right now, can get anything they want for as long as you're willing to pay for it. Before, when we had a movement called Alta Cocina Filipina, there was nothing that we could get. There were import restrictions left and right, and we had to be on our wits to produce a certain internationalized and acceptable cuisine. Now, we are moving towards that. What is good also with the pandemic, I guess, is it has encouraged people to cook more and to bake more at home.
Yeah.
And this ups the quality of what we eat and the quality and the ante of what we eat. That is one of the only things I can see that's good that's happened in this pandemic thing. But it certainly has put up the standards of the eating Filipino.
Okay. If there are no, well, let me entertain. Okay. I think there's a question. How relevant is Duman? I think that should be the final question.
Yeah, Duman. Unfortunately, the studies of Duman are very well present among the Thais. In fact, there are Duman booths in Thailand where you can buy this Duman, but again, this Duman only uses certain varieties of rice that are not like what we have, yung milagrosa na Duman, yung talagang mamahalin na Duman. And there are, parang there is a scientific explanation for youthfulness and all that when it comes to the eating of Duman. But again, it's very expensive because it is hand pounded, and it's also very difficult to get because you're harvesting it very early. That's why,
Okay.
But studies show that there is a helpful science in eating duman.
Okay, I guess that should be the end of our Q&A. Thank you very much, Jean, for sharing your time and expertise. I think you've left our tummies full with a lot of history and culture, but I think we still have room to have our tummies filled with the food that we will soon partake for dinner with our families. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and I hope you can visit my YouTube channel. You can buy our books, and you can take lessons in the Center for Asian Culinary Studies. And lastly, we are so personalized in Cafe Ysabel. We've always been where you can have a dinner that is custom made, even just for 4 people. We can do it for you.
Okay,
So
so get your cue, guys. So thank you. And of course, I'd like to thank the audience for joining us tonight. And please stay tuned for the future lecture series on topics, the next one being on OPM. So good night, everyone. And thank you very
good
much.
night. Thank you very much.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.